Hello student, welcome to EPG Pathsala. I am Dr. Ajit Jaiswal from Department of Anthropology, Pondicherry Central University. Today we are going to discuss about a modules entitled Physical Performance and Environmental Stress under paper titled Physiological Anthropology. In these modules, the important objective of these modules are as follows. This particular course provide introductory information to the field of physical performances and environmental stress. The study of these modules enables the student at postgraduate level to understand the role of environmental factors affecting performance of the person. As we all know that the champions are made by either nature or nurture. That is the question which intrigues many a people even to these days. It could have been possible that when science was not as advanced as it is now, champions could have depended on sheer talent to excel. But with sports sciences contribution to improve every aspect of sport training, an athlete's dependence on his or her talent alone has greatly reduced. Penetration of information technology and highly scientific training programs and monitoring has put those with the will to train and work with such resources in the more or less even platform with those who may be talented but do not depend on planned and systematic training as much. Therefore, the emphasis on the sports person being made than born is greater than even before. So much so that with the right kind of environment, the potential to develop a champion sports person is even so great. Similar conclusion was drawn by Joseph Becker in 2001 in his article called Genes and Training for Athletic Performance Revisited. He opined that research from studies of sports expertise indicate that differences between experts and non-experts in cognitive sports are found only in domain specific information processing abilities that are primarily the result of training. But now the environment itself could be different in different domain and hence have both positive and negative impact on certain aspect of performance. At the grassroots level or initial stage, just the presence or absence of basic infrastructure itself could be determined to a person born with the born with talent or otherwise to take up a certain sports or activity. If the right kind of infrastructure is present that permits most, if not all, to evoke interest in its uses, the possibilities of converting such interest into a regular habit becomes very high, immaterial of the person going on to become a elite sports persons or not. As the person's interests start dominating and move into a serious and long-term training mode, the factors other than genetic factor namely like height and muscle compositions which impact performance is worked upon in order to enhance performance. Gradually the training acquires a scientific platform as the sports person progress and sophisticated inputs from sports science are engaged. However, hence, if such inputs are available to larger part of the population who witness or who interested in sports and physical performance, the better will be the result, thereby making a marked improvement in overall quality of physical health of citizen, and also activating the talent pool in a much better environment. So, though certain aspect of environment could be controlled by human, not all can be manipulated. Hence, in case when the control is not possible, the proportion or the sports person have to try and accelerate to that environment in order to give them the best chance to perform at their best. Physical performance. Physical performance is mainly a function of an individual's size, shape, sex, and age, but not entirely so. Success in sports at whatever level also depends on fitness. It is assumed, of course, that implicit in any definition of fitness is the absence of acute or chronic illness. Fitness is sport specific, and in many sports it is also position specific. This fitness for purpose is a well accepted concept in sports, as reflected by the use of word fit to describe, for example, successful runner, swimmer, gymnast, paragliding or athletics, paraplegic, etc. Nevertheless, fitness for any sports has five common elements, that is strength, speed, endurance, flexibility, and skill. The relative contributions of each of these to the specific fitness demands of different sports are, of course, not equal. Training time devoted to each of these elements is therefore different between sports and depend on the level of participation. To a certain extent, skill can compensate for poor fitness, but improved fitness allows skillful athletes to extend their performances by delaying the onset of fatigue. Environmental stress. Although the term environmental stress is used across multiple fields in biology, the inherent ambiguity associated with its definition has caused confusion when attempting to understand organizational response to environmental change. The definition of the term environmental stress is like pressure on the environment caused by human activity, like such as generation of development of or creating pollution, or by natural events such as occurrence of drought, many kinds of even flood, tsunami, and so on, so things. So the environment is often seen as leading to damage to mental and physical health by contributing to stress. The concept of stress. Stress can be said to exist when the environment is felt to be making demands on people that exceed their ability to cope. Stress generally is a situation or condition which places an individual under some pressure, involves adjustment in behavior, and can cause changes which are unpleasant, sometimes maladaptive, and even associated with physical damage. The situation is the stressor and the behavior is the stress response. The process also involves cognitive appraisal. The person assesses the potential threat and also assesses how personally to cope with this situation. The nature of stressors. They are generally unpleasant, but stress can also arise from intensely pleasurable experiences. Usually, a lack of control is important in stress situations. We may not have a control or use that control in a situation, but it is important that we feel that we have control. Predictability of event or stress usually accompanies unpredictable event. We are generally steady state individuals, and most of our physiological and psychological mechanisms work to avoid change or to adjust to change slowly. But very predictable events can also be stressful. That dripping top in the kitchen, the phone that keep on ringing, and so on. Adaptation syndrome. Stress produces an alarm reaction when adrenaline and non-adrenaline are released into the bloodstream. This is followed by a resistance phase when glucocorticoids are produced and high metabolic rate is maintained. Finally, if stress continues, then an exhaustion phase is reached where resistance to all forms of stress decreases and widespread damage to tissue, high blood pressure, etc. occurs, often resulting in determinant to health, and in some cases severe physical damage such as stroke, heart attack, etc. can occur. The actual physical and psychological changes depend on the individual and their personal experiences and appraisal of a situation, but generally, an increased level of tension, anxiety, and depression are frequent signs of stress. Forgetting an emotional reaction may be seen, possibly leading to increased aggression and hostility. Behavioral disorganization often occur. This shows itself in a person's reasoning ability, which declines or slows, and the ability to carry out skilled tasks often disappears. Routine, ritual, and stereotype behavior may also be seen, as if the brain is shutting down its active thinking and sophisticated skill function, and we revert to a lower level of functioning. Long term, however you define it, stress often result in maladaptive coping strategies, substances abuse, etc. Prolonged stress may result in physical or mental health problems. Environmental factors affecting performance. Kimberly D. Anadal has extensively dealt with the factors affecting performance and classified them as follows. First, hot climate. Second, cold climate. Third, synthetic and natural grass surfaces. Fourth, pollution. Fifth, altitude. Let me give you some information regarding hot climate, hot environment. The core temperature of the athletes will increase while exercising in hot environment. This may result in decreased athletic performance when environmental temperature are high, essentially due excessive loss of body fluid and impaired thermoregulation in extreme environment. Athletes with a smaller body size will produce and store less heat than their heavier counterpart. When a player exercised in an environment that created a core temperature greater than his or her accepted body temperature, the player's body innately anticipates an undesirable rise in core temperature. Just as the hot environment can negatively impact performance, exercising in a cold environment has been found to influence performance as well. One major concern of exercising in the cold is the effect cold air has on the pulmonary system. Exercise-induced bronchospasm can lead to a higher ventilation rate due to the constriction of the airways as a result of the dry and cold air being breathed in. This leads to a higher exertion and a decrease in performance. Unlike in warm environment, heart rate decreases in cold weather due to the body's attempt to retain heat through vasoconstriction. Similarly, when we talk about synthetic grass versus natural grass, an increasing number of athletic fields are being installed as artificial or natural turf to take the place of regular grass field. According to the Synthetic Turf Council in 2009, more than 1,000 fields were being installed each year, while in the same group of primary pollutant as carbon monoxide and nitrogen oxide is another pollutant, particulate matters. Particulate matter is made up of all the small or large solid or liquid particles that float around in the air. The most influential particles are those less than 10 micrometer in diameter, also referred to as PM10. These particles are associated with deteriorated lung functioning and damage to the respiratory system. Similarly, at high altitude can significantly influence the performance of an anaerobic athlete. Although the amount of oxygen available does not change as altitude increases, the partial pressure of the oxygen decreases. Normal partial pressure of oxygen at sea level is 159 mmHg. Climbing up to 2000 meter, the POT, or what is called partial pressure of oxygen, dropped to 125 mmHg, and at 400 meter it dropped even further to 97 millimeter Hg. This drop in the partial pressure of oxygen creates a hypobaric hypoxic environment. A hypobaric environment has a reduced barometric pressure, while a hypoxic environment shows a compromised delivery of oxygen to the tissue. Physiologically, a hypoxic environment causes a decrease in the pressure gradient across cell membrane, making it harder for the tissues or the body to take up and utilize oxygen. Ambient environmental stressors. Almost any aspect of the physical environment has been examined as a potential threat or ambient stressor. Some of the most interesting and important ones are like light, air, etc. Light. We are becoming more aware of light effect on behavior. Seasonal affective disorder is one such effect, what is called as SAD or SAD. SAD is associated with the overeating and oversleeping and seems to disappear more or less spontaneously in spring. Perhaps it is a sort of mini hibernation process, a legacy of our animal past. The main physiological effect of light seems to be on the production of melatonin. Phototherapy, giving a patient a couple of hours of artificial sunlight, seems quite effective. Generally, changes which affect our experiences of light and dark hours have noticeable effect on behavior. Shift work and jet lag are two examples. Similarly, air quality has been much studied and is becoming more of a green environmental tissue. Topic studies include in this are effect of wind, ionization, air pressure, and the effect of specific pollutant. Let's discuss about wind. Is air movement? There is a much natural variation in wind, including changes in speed and turbulence. It is a natural phenomena, but building may cause channeling and eddying of wind, which can be stressful in substances. When I was an undergrad at Dune University, we had a hall of residence which consisted of three distinct blocks built onto a sloping hill. This meant that one of the blocks stood away from the rest and was supported on concrete stilts or legs. The building was positioned so that the prevailing wind cut across the main block and was funneled to this slit supported block, and the wind picked up speed as it went. So, virtually we can say that overall the imagination is as such. All our skin sensors are used to detect wind. Pressure receptors, temperature and humidity detectors. Ears monitors the sound of wind, and muscle feedback receptors register the work we have to do to move into and across winds. When we discuss about the effect of wind on behavior, Somers and Moss exemplary work on the effect of climate on behavior. Many studies are correlated and look at general record of behavior and seek association with climate pattern. Similarly, when we discuss about the ionization, here the important point is that is the splitting of air molecules into positive and negative charged ions. Usually there are slightly more positive than negative ions, and this effect increases in inside environment and where there are amount of electrical apparatus or activities. Example near computer, TV monitor. Negative ions are associated with outdoor situation like running water, etc. There are not only absolute differences in ionized air but also that the proportion changes from place to place. Whether negative ions have an effect on behavior has been and still is disputed. Air pressure and altitude. There is an inverse relation between these two factors. As altitude goes up, air pressure goes down. At high altitude, oxygen level decline. With low level of oxygen, hypoxia symptoms occur. These include deeper breathing and rapid breathing and increases in heart rate. Retinas becomes less light sensitive and sugar seeking behavior occurs. Hormone production is reduced and menstrual complaints and adrenal activity increases. For example, in situation of low oxygen, each breath will therefore contain proportionally more nitrogen, so some of this lack of oxygen feature may really be due to more nitrogen in the bloodstream. Nitrogen poisoning is a feature of low altitude, and most people are familiar with the notion of divers getting the bends as a consequence of the physiological changes which happen at depth. Nitrogen poisoning manifests itself with symptoms of lightheadedness and mental instability. Changes in weather are usually accompanied by changes in barometric pressure, that is, low pressure associated with wet and stormy weather, and high pressure with dry and stable weather. Again, weather changes also involve changes in temperature, wind speed, humidity, not just barometric pressure, so it is a multivariate situation and consequently difficult to see simple cause and effect relationship. Air pollution. Normal air is 78% nitrogen, 21% oxygen and 0.9% organs and 0.03% carbon dioxide. Any real pollutants are therefore often present in minute traces. The major other substances in air are ozone, hydrogen sulfide, methane, and carbon monoxide. Pollution of air may be in some circumstances be easy to see, as in smokes, but generally we are unaware of polluting substances in the air we breathe. And interestingly, perception of pollution don't coincide with objective measures of pollution. An interesting little piece by Winnick and Kostaka asked people to estimate the pollution level emitted by two sources. They found that people complained more about and judged pollutant level to be higher when the source was an oily refinery than when it was a chocolate factory. There is some suggestion that there may be a general air pollutant syndromes and such that a combination of pollutant gives rise to headache, fatigue, insomnia, irritability, depression, sore eyes, back pain, impaired judgment, and gastrointestinal disorder. The effect of specific pollutant like carbon monoxide, carbon dioxide, sulfur dioxide, ozone, formaldehyde, particulate, tobacco smoke, smell, temperature, and noise. Okay, now let's discuss about the conclusive informations about the important point that we have discussed in this particular module. As we all know that an athlete is influenced by various factors. Just now we discussed that are controllable and a few beyond this control. So there are some other factor which may be controlled, which may have will try to control it, and for others it is not in our hand. Not taking them is sure to affect not only their performance but can also cause irreparable harm to their body and health. Hence, it is very critical that any person, most importantly a sports person, be aware of the environmental influence that are beyond their control. They have to be aware of the all this important environmental factor influences. It pays to take enough to take all precaution and to take time to acclimatize in different and challenging environment so that his peak performance as well as his prime health does not deteriorate, does not harm. So ultimately, after discussing a complete informative information about this module, so dear student, now let's try to summarize what we have learned from this module. As we all know that environment in which an athlete train and their ability to adapt to the training and performance environment has a great role in the success of an athlete. Different demographics will have different demands on the athletes and they must be aware of its effect on their physiology so that they can prepare their body appropriately and take maximum possible advantage of the environment on which they otherwise have little or no control. With the development of information technology and sports sciences, the minute detail of every activity that an athlete engaged is take note of and program design accordingly. Hence, the role of environment combined with support from sports science has begun to have dominating effect on an athlete's success like never before. Thank you.